Welcome to our channel where we dive into the most chilling and true creepy night stories. Tonight we're going deep into the bowels of old buildings where darkness lingers and fear festers. We bring you 3 terrifying tales of night shifts that turned into nightmares. Make sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more spine-tingling stories. Our first story takes us to the desolate halls of St. Swithin's, a once proud hospital now left to decay. It stands on a windswept hill overlooking the town, a brooding sentinel against the setting sun. Locals whisper tales of its troubled past, of patients who checked in but never checked out. Our protagonist tonight is Michael, a young man hardened by life's trials. He took the night shift security job at St. Swithin's for one reason: money. His first few nights were uneventful, filled with the mundane routine of security patrols and endless cups of coffee. The silence of the empty hospital was unsettling, punctuated only by the creaking of the building. It was on his 4th night that Michael's skepticism crumbled. His rounds took him to the basement, a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and locked storerooms. As he passed the old morgue, he felt a distinct chill, a sudden drop in temperature. He paused, listening, his breath shallow in the oppressive silence, and then he heard it, a soft, mournful sigh. He shone his flashlight down the corridor, but there was nothing there. He told himself it was the wind playing tricks on his nerves. The following night, the disturbances escalated. As Michael made his way down to the basement, he heard the distinct sound of footsteps echoing behind him. He whirled around, his heart pounding, but again there was no one there. He continued his patrol, his senses on high alert. As he passed the old operating theatre, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. He distinctly remembered closing it earlier. He slowly pushed the door open, his flashlight beam dancing across the rusted surgical instruments. Suddenly the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging him into darkness. Panic surged through him as he fumbled for the door handle. Then he heard it again, a low, guttural growl coming from the far corner of the room. He swung his flashlight around, the beam illuminating a shadowy figure hovering in the darkness. It was the shape of a man, tall and gaunt, his eyes glowing an eerie red. Michael froze, paralyzed by fear as the figure glided towards him. He stumbled back, tripping over a stray medical cart, and scrambled to his feet. He ran, his lungs burning, his heart pounding, the sound of his own terror echoing through the empty corridors. He never went back, his spirit broken, his mind haunted by the horrors he had witnessed in the basement of St. Swithin's. Our next tale takes us to the echoing corridors of an old school, a place where young minds once thrived. But like all things touched by time, the school had fallen into disrepair. It was here that our next protagonist, a middle-aged janitor named Edward, encountered the chilling reality of the supernatural. Edward was a simple man, content with his quiet life and the routine of his work. He had been the school janitor for as long as anyone could remember. He knew every nook and cranny of the building, every creak of the floorboards. It started subtly with strange noises in the dead of night, the scraping of a broom against the floor when no one was around, the distant clang of metal lockers slamming shut. Edward dismissed them at first, attributing them to the building's age, but as the weeks turned into months, the incidents became more frequent and more unsettling. One night, as Edward made his rounds, he noticed a light flickering in the basement. He distinctly remembered locking it earlier. He cautiously approached the room, his heart pounding in his chest. As he reached the door, he heard a voice, low and mournful, humming a haunting melody. It was a tune he vaguely recognized, an old lullaby his grandmother used to sing. He slowly pushed the door open, the rusty hinges groaning in protest, and peered inside. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the musty smell of old books. In the center of the room, silhouetted against the single flickering light bulb, stood a figure. It was the outline of a man dressed in a janitor's uniform, his back to Edward. "Hello?" Edward called out, his voice trembling slightly. The figure continued humming, seemingly oblivious to his presence. Edward took a step closer, his hand reaching for the light switch. As the fluorescent lights flickered to life, the figure vanished. Edward stood there for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He scanned the room, but there was nowhere for anyone to hide. He was alone. He tried to rationalize what he had seen, but the image of the ghostly janitor was seared into his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone in the old schoolhouse. As the weeks passed, the encounters with the ghostly janitor became more frequent. Edward would catch glimpses of him out of the corner of his eye, or hear his mournful humming echoing through the empty halls. One particularly chilling night, as Edward was locking up, he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He turned slowly and found himself face to face with the ghostly janitor. The figure was more solid this time, its features clearer, though still blurred around the edges. Its eyes, however, were crystal clear, burning with a cold, otherworldly light. Our final story takes us to a towering office building, a symbol of ambition and progress. But beneath its gleaming facade lay a basement steeped in shadow and fear. It was here that our final protagonist, a security guard named Sarah, would face her darkest fears. Sarah was a woman of quiet strength, her calm demeanor hiding a steely resolve. She had taken the night shift security job at the office building as a stepping stone. She never imagined that her nightly vigil would become the inspiration for her most terrifying story. The office building was a hive of activity during the day, but at night it transformed into an eerie labyrinth. Sarah's job was simple: patrol the building, ensure all doors were secure, and report any unusual activity. The first few weeks were uneventful, filled with the monotony of checking locks and logging her rounds. But as the nights wore on, a sense of unease began to creep into Sarah's bones. It started with the feeling of being watched, a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. Then came the whispers, soft and indistinct, carried on the edge of silence. Sarah, a woman of logic and reason, tried to dismiss these occurrences as tricks of the mind. But deep down, a seed of fear had been planted. One night, as Sarah made her rounds in the basement, the oppressive atmosphere of the building seemed to press down on her. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete and stagnant water. As she rounded a corner, her flashlight beam illuminated a sight that sent a chill down her spine. A single elevator, dormant for the night, had its doors slightly ajar. She distinctly remembered checking it earlier. She cautiously approached the elevator, her hand hovering over the baton on her belt. As she peered inside, she noticed a faint light emanating from within. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The air inside the elevator was stifling, heavy with the scent of decay. The faint light was coming from the control panel, the buttons flickering erratically. Suddenly, the elevator lurched into motion, the doors slamming shut with a deafening clang. Sarah stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. The elevator began to ascend rapidly, the cables groaning under the strain. Panic surged through her as she hammered on the buttons. But the elevator continued its relentless climb. She was trapped. Hurtling upwards towards an unknown destination, the air grew colder, the smell of decay intensifying, and the whispers returned, louder now. Then, as abruptly as it had started, the elevator shuddered to a halt. The lights died, plunging her into darkness, and a deathly silence descended. She fumbled for her flashlight, her breath coming in ragged gasps. As the beam of her flashlight cut through the darkness, she gasped in horror. She was no longer in the elevator. She was in a narrow stone corridor, the walls lined with what appeared to be ancient rusted cages. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share your own creepy night shift experiences in the comments below. The night can be a scary place, especially when you're alone in the dark. But remember, You're not alone in your fear. We're here to face the darkness together, one chilling story at a time. Stay tuned for more true horror stories. And remember, sometimes the scariest things happen when the world is asleep. Until next time, stay safe and